why not meditate? What's the alternative? You're gonna be like shaky all the time and just uncomfortable, or do it. Like, why do you start this business? Why not? Like, are you gonna be broke? Like, no. Like, why work out? Why not? Do you not want to look great? So when I had the why not, it not only allowed me to find the motivation, but it also made it look like so fucking obvious. Like, yeah, right. Why not? Why not do these things?
Dude, I'm really excited because you've been on a hell of a journey over the last 2 years. You came on episode 86. I re-listened to part of it today and I was like, "Oh my God. What the hell is this guy doing podcasting?" Speaking about myself, this is so it's crazy how much you can be critical of yourself from a previous version when you've grown, which is exciting.
Right.
But it was cool because it was early days in our journey. I want to get into what has happened over the past 2 years for you. But first, I'd love to start with likes and cash. What is that?
Yeah. So likes and cash was like the tagline that came after like 2 years of Twitter growth and monetization. Because when I first started on Twitter, I really didn't really know what I was doing. It's 2020, it's COVID, everybody's just kind of locked down. And I would just want to make some money. I want to start a business, right? At the time I was a VA and I was making $250 a month. And I saw this screenshot. I think it was Chris Johnson. And this dude's posting screenshots on 250K months. I'm like, no way. Like, that's not true, right? Like, that can't be true. Anyway, I started on Twitter, but I kind of was all over the place. And I built this audience that was fairly big, but I always struggled with the monetization aspect, which is another way of saying, like, I was broke, right? I wasn't making much money. But then I had around 70,000 followers, and I met this guy with 900 followers, this accountant, this CPA called Tony. And he booked a call with me because he wanted my advice on Twitter. And I got him on a call, and it turns out that this guy was making as much as I was making with 900 followers, and I had 70K. And to me, like, I was so embarrassed at that point, So likes and cash is kind of like, yeah, positioning. It's like my tagline. It's also kind of PTSD because I don't want to go back to that shit. Like, it's so embarrassing, right? But when I did that, I kind of found a little bit of alignment in what I wanted to talk about, because Twitter growth always felt kind of like it felt kind of like cheap in a way. There's a lot of like pyramid schemey kind of things. People growing their accounts, showing others how to grow their accounts so they can show others how to grow their accounts. And I didn't want to be a part of that. It didn't feel right. But the monetization I really liked it. And then Jack Butcher posted a tweet that said, engagement ain't cash. Like, I like that, but it needs it's a little bit shorter. Like, it's gotta be a little shorter. So I took the likes and cash thing, and when I put it out, it like instantly resonated with the Twitter people. And I just kept using it ever since, and I now repeat it like 10 times a day.
Why do you repeat it so much?
It's because I really believe that you get tired of your message before people understand your message. So repeating it often, like, at some point, repetition becomes belief. And I want people to, like, when they have that problem, when they like they have their Tony moment, right? They have their Tony moment. I want that thing to pop up first. I don't want other growth programs or other coaches to pop up first. I want them to think about likes and cash. And, when you post, less than 10% of your audience is going to see your post anyway. Like, people just follow and then forget, or like you get buried in the algorithm. So I'm just going to take every chance I get, to say it. I say that Twitter is saying one thing 1,000 different ways. And, I'm taking my 1,000.
I love that. So last 2 years, April 2021, you came on the podcast. We're now recording April 2023. What have been the most impactful moments from the past 2 years?
It's actually been exactly 2 years now. It's crazy. I didn't know that. Oh, okay, cool. Well, the most impactful moments, I'd say there were a few. And, when I think about what was like the common thing, it all came from, not from what, but from whom. Like, who did I partner up along the way? So the first one was with Ed Lattimore. That was 2021. I launched the templates, and we sent out a PDF, and like with that PDF, I made more money than I've ever seen before. I'm like, wow, like this is great, right? Because I partnered with a big influencer.
How much?
We made like at the time in like the first 2 weeks, like 74K, something like that.
$74,000 in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, something like that. And I was hyped, because I was like, oh my god, this is great. This is just a PDF. Like I don't even have to fulfill the thing. It's awesome. And I'd like to ask you about like how you see the podcast like merge within your business model later on. Not the podcast, the products and the courses we're gonna launch. Yeah, we can talk about it later. But that's the first one. Second one was Tweet Hunter. It was a SaaS because Tweet Hunter was a software company that I started. Well, I didn't start it. I kind of tagged along the journey early on with Thibaut and Thomas, who were two entrepreneurs in France that started this software called Tweet Hunter that allow you to schedule tweets. And we launched it. And at the time, like SaaS was like popular. Everybody was launching their own thing. And I liked it. And if I ever learned anything from Twitter was that if somebody's doing it, if I copy it, like I can't end up in a worse situation because I was just kind of learning, right? I was just, like borrowing from different things. And I like that. And I was like, if the east side guys are the product guys and I have the audience, I can be the guy that pushes it. And I became that guy that pushes it. We got to like 10 to 15K MRR in like the first 2 weeks of launching. And then it kept growing to like 40 and 50. And in hindsight, I was like, this is great, but I wanted to sell it because at the time I was like obsessed with just having kind of that exit. Like I really wanted to have an exit. I really wanted to be like, hey, I exited my company, I sold it. This is awesome, right? I wanted that, and I focused on that. And well, we sold it, right? But at the moment it was kind of bittersweet. So that was a third moment actually when I detached from them. It was not just building the thing, but exiting the thing because I was like, whoa, this could have been bigger. I sold it. Yeah, I got my exit, but nobody gave me like a trophy. Nobody gave me like a medal. It was just like, okay, that's it. What's next? Right? You're like, I wanted to take a break. And I was like, this is going to mark a before and after of my Twitter. And it didn't really do that for me. I just kind of like kept doing the thing. So those were the three moments that first two were very positive. The other one was kind of negative because I felt like, well, is that it?
So you attempted to sell the company because you wanted to be seen as somebody who had sold the company.
Yeah, I want like
where's the insecurity coming from?
I guess because that you ever see the Simon Sinek finite and infinite games thing?
Mm-hmm.
Now that I watched the thing like and maybe your audience isn't familiar with it, I'd like to explain it. So it's like there's two games. There's like finite and infinite games. Finite are games that have like defined rules, defined outcomes, and a defined winner. Infinite games don't have that. An infinite game is you don't win the game, you just keep playing the game. It's in perpetuity. So for example, fitness, that is an infinite game. You don't win at fitness, right? It's like you just keep getting healthier.
Well, some people try to make fitness a finite game by attaching a race to it or a day to it of like, okay, by this date, I'm going to be in great shape, right? Like fitness can become a finite game if you are dieting for a vacation or you have a challenge that you're trying to hit. But it's like it becomes infinite when you're like, I enjoy the process of doing this for the sake of doing it.
That's right. That's right. And I think I mixed up the Twin Art thing with a finite and an infinite game. I thought you win at business by exiting. I thought that was like you get the star, you get the recognition, and then you get invited to all the parties and do all the cool shit, and everybody thinks you're the man. But like, that's not how it goes, by the way. Like, that doesn't happen. But I made that mistake, and I didn't want it to be. I didn't want that, right? I thought it was gonna be like a final game. I was gonna win, and then that's it. But to answer that, I've always been like very competitive ever since I was a kid. We're talking about my dad in the beginning, right? And my dad always like he talks about like I'm half Korean, right? And he's like if you're Asian, like you always gotta do well. You always gotta do the thing, right? It's like if you get a 98, why didn't you get a 99? If you get a 99, why didn't you get 100? If you get 100, why didn't you do it earlier? Right? That's kind of how it goes. And I always wanted, like, I wanted that approval. I wanted that recognition. I wanted to be like, hey, like, Dad, at least for today, like, I won. Right? Look at this thing. I'm first place. I won the thing. Like, look at it. And it kind of, I think, like, permeated into the how I make decisions, or like made that decision at least. And it came from that insecurity of not being enough. I talk about this with, I want to say friends, but it's like three friends that I got. But like, I talk about this with them a lot. It's like, I like to take care of my sleep. I like to go to bed at 9. I like to wake up at 5 or 6. But if I text my friends at like midnight or like 11 p.m. even, they know something's wrong, right? So I'll text them. It's like, hey, what's up? And it's like, hey, what's going on? Like, they're freaking out because they know that. And I do this a lot. Like, sometimes I wake up, like, something wakes me up that I'm thinking about business. I'm like, this wasn't good enough. Could be better, right? Or like, I don't like that copy. Something should be changed. I don't like what I told that guy. And I'll wake up and like edit the Slack message just to make sure, right? Or like, I'm not clear enough on what I'm gonna do tomorrow. I need to go back to my notebook and rewrite my to-do list to make sure it's great. And I'm like, I don't have nothing cooking on the back end of my mind. I need to think about something so I can go to bed and wake up with some ideas formulated for that something. So it's always that, like, I just like feel so like I need to do more all the time. And you could call it unhealthy or unhealthy or whatever, but like in a way, it's like not doing that. It's like it drives me even crazier. Like, not being able to know that there is a direction, that I did my best. Like, not going to bed tired, to me, it's like just fucking unacceptable. Because I'm like, bro, like, it just feels so wrong. You know what I mean? So yeah, I guess it comes from that, from always wanted to like from feeling like maybe I'm just not good enough, and I always wanted to, you know, be better than everybody else. Like, I wanted people to look at me and be like, yeah, he's the guy. I wanted people to look up to me and be like, yo, whatever happens, we got him on our team, right? Which yeah, I guess that's where it comes from, to answer your question.
When was the last time you felt peace?
Last time I felt peace, it was like 3 years ago or more, three and a half years ago or something. And like, so we can define peace, right? Because everybody has like different terms on this, right? It's like, this is why this kind of things are so interesting, because everybody has like different things. What is God? What is love? What is this to you, right? But like peace, and I think Naval has a something similar, that it's like when you don't want anything else. Is that it? Right?
I love that definition of peace.
Yeah, you know what my favorite definition of peace is no stress. But to that, you need to define stress, right? So my favorite definition of that, it's stress is when an object wants to be in two places at once. So let's say you have a stick, right? And if you do it like this, it's performing stress. However, if you let it go, then it only wants to be in one direction at once, so it just goes. So sometimes it happens to me that I want to be in two directions at once. That is because I'm feeling stressed. And when I identify what are those two things that I want to do at once, or be at once, or have at once, and I let one go, stress goes away. You know what I mean? That's kind of how I look at it. And I did see it on a Naval podcast, right? So this is not original or whatever.
It's a great thought, though.
Yeah, I love that thing. It's a good visual to have in mind. I think a lot in visuals, which is why I love Jack Butcher. And we'll probably name him a lot in this podcast, right? It's cool because on the business podcast, I'm always talking about Hormozy because I learned so much from him. But like in life, I talk about Butcher, Naval, and all those guys. But yeah. So the last time I felt at peace was the first time I sold like it wasn't even big, but let's do some context. So I started many businesses, right? Started a perfume business, door-to-door perfume business. I sold like 10 perfume bottles or something.
With your grandma, right?
Yeah, with my grandma. No, my grandma was the shirt sewing business. So yeah, so I bought shirts and from the Korean lady at the at the corner store, and then with my grandma we saw some like designs, Guatemalan designs, and I went selling them. Right, I sold one shirt, but that's what happened. Anyway, this was like the one where I'm like, I made somewhat of a bigger transaction happen. So it was with a friend in college. We wanted to sell the SaaS so people could keep, like colleges could track community service hours. You know, very sexy business, right? Very, very, very hot, but that's what we did. And I remember that we went to like the dean and then the I don't know how to call it, rector, like the top guy at the college, right? Where we
Mhm.
saw the thing, and we pitched the SaaS. They didn't buy the SaaS, but they bought the research we did for that SaaS, right? It was like a $1,500 thing that they bought for like 1.5 years of work or
Mm.
something like that. Just fucking horrendous. Yeah, but I felt like closure. It felt so great, and they gave us a check. I remember, bro. I I went to the library and I photocopied that check. I bought some frames, put them in there. I gave it to my friend Luis. Shout out. We just fucking we felt like we were superheroes, right? It was great, and I had it in my room. It's framed, right? It's that one check for 11,000 quetzales, which is like $1,500, something like that. And I remember that the day after, because I just did so much and finally like closed it. I remember I woke up, and for the first time in like forever, I'm like, I don't want anything more than what I have now. It's like this is all I've been working for, like for so long. And it lasted for like what, like 20 seconds, and then I get hungry and I'm like, I'm gonna eat something, right? Because I wanted something. Like I had a desire at that point, right? But that was like the last time where I'm like, wow, like this is like I don't want anything else. Like it's it's like once or twice in my life that my I've actually not been thinking about anything, and that's probably the only one I can recall.
So you felt peace when you made that sale, but you didn't feel peace when you made a sale for a much, much higher amount.
Yeah, yeah. So the a $1,500 sale hit harder than a $1.4 million sale. Like it was. You know what would be cool, if I could make the conversion for like quetzales to dollars. Maybe it's 1,400, right? And 1,400, 1.4 mil. You know, that'd be cool. But maybe it is because it's getting devalued. But anyway, we'll roll with that. 1.4 mil versus 1,400. The $1,400 sale hit harder than a $1.4 million sale because it kind of felt like I dropped the ball on the 1.4 mil
Wow.
sometimes,
Why?
because it's a 1x multiple for a SaaS. And maybe this goes back to expectations, but at the time, and maybe today, maybe this is true, right? But people are saying you can exit a SaaS for 5, 10, 20, 30x multiple. I'm like, well, I want that, right? I just didn't know any better. And knowing that it was a 1x multiple, and you could like kind of see this in the comment section. It's like that kind of tongue in cheek, as in congrats, but like why? Like why'd you sell it, right? Because we sold it when it was making what, like 125K a month. So like mathematically it didn't make much sense, but I had to get that little star, right? I had to get the recognition. I had to be like, yeah, like look at me, I exited a company. I had to put fucking acquired in my Twitter bio. Right now I use it because it is
It's still there.
yeah, it is helpful. It is still there, yeah. But you know I think it's cooler to own a big company than it is to exit a small company.
Another part of it is like, what would you have done if you weren't playing to other people's perceptions? And how do you not play to your other people's perceptions in the next thing you do?
Yeah. And those are really two really good questions. Let's start with the what would I have done differently? It was very weird to me when Tebow once asked me. Tebow was one of my co-founders. Tebow once asked me, "JK, would you please stop promoting?" Like the fuck? Like, aren't we here to make money, right? Like, it's like, yeah, but like it's not just about acquisition. Like we need to make sure we retain these people. It's not just promoting, it's actually keeping the customer. And I didn't understand that. So anyway, I just brought a lot of people in. And I remember we had our best month ever. And there's three co-founders. It was Tebow, Thomas, and me. And I'm over the moon. You can see it on the Zoom call. I'm like, fuck yeah, guys, we're crushing it. Like, you're welcome, right? And then these these two dudes, they're like concerned. I'm like, what are you concerned about? It's like we gotta repeat it again next month. And I didn't get it because they were thinking in a much longer time frame than me. They were thinking about, yes, exiting, but investors don't just want to see peaks. They want to see exponential growth. They want to see a percentage every month. And that didn't give us that. So when I look back, I would, instead of focusing so much on just trying to get the first image, the really cool like spike, how about you try to build a sustainable business, right? How about you try to actually make the curve look nice instead of like all just jagged.
So how do you do that practically?
Yeah. So Hormozy has this again, right? We should drop a Hormozy word count on this.
Take a shot every time JK says Hormozy, Naval, or Jack Butcher. You are going to be drunk in about 3 minutes.
Yeah, it is true, but
But I
okay.
love it, and it shows your filters and sources are good sources and filters, which a lot of people are going throughout life without good mentors, good role models, good filters for what to expect. And the fact that you quote them so often shows just how much they've implanted themselves into your mind, and they're good sources of information. So it's like you're living a life that is incredible. Like you sold the company for $1.4 million. You're very successful, outer metrics of success. What I want to get to in this conversation, hopefully we will, is how do you get to the internal measures of success as well? Because that to me is way more important. But we'll get there.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so how do you practically get to the place of less peaks and troughs?
Yeah. Well, with the internal thing, it's gonna be a fun one. But
Oh,
okay, so a practical thing, right? So like getting like sustainable growth. So Alex talks about like it's not just about getting more customers, or there's two ways to grow a company: get more customers, so you can make every customer worth more. And I just understood the first part. I didn't get the second half of the memo, right? And I was like, no, just get more people. But I only check how many people were coming in, but I never checked the churn. Because to me, it was irrelevant. I didn't get it because it didn't contribute to the shiny screenshot I can share and show people how cool I am. Right? I didn't do that. But now I understand that a lot, which is ties back to the second one, the second question you asked before, which was how are you not going to play to people's perceptions? Is I focus on building sustainable business more than just a peaky business, something that looks like big in the front end, but it's like really not that cool. Like a lot of people will be like, yeah, bro, like I'm making this much money. I'm like, yeah, cool, but like, how much is profit? Like I got these many clients, where how much are you retaining them? Like I got these many people, how many are talking about your service without you asking them to? Now, like that's the big one. When I partner up with my business partner today, who's Ryan, I asked him like what one of the things that really made me think like this is the guy was when he said, you know what my aim for this company is? I'm like, what? And he said, I want to get a referral from every customer and a customer from every referral. I'm like, I fuck with that. That's so good. I want that. Because then that means that you focus on acquisition, which is, half of the thing, but you also focus on the other half of the thing, which is retention, making everybody worth more, ascension. And I really, really, really like that. Now I kind of focus on those two things. But when you focus on the second one, which is ascension, you inherently need to play a more patient game, because acquiring a customer is easier than just, making a customer happy. Like you got to make them love you, right? But that takes a longer time inherently. So it allowed me to play more patient games. So if I could summarize everything I just talked about when it comes to what is the one like correction I'm going to make going forward, it's just I'm going to be patient. Like I'm waiting it out. I'm like, dude, we're in it for 5 years. Are you cool with it? And he's like, yeah, I'm cool with it. I'm like, we're essentially getting married, right? I hope you understand. It's like, yeah. And I like asked him like fucking 10 times, like, Ryan, are you sure? It's like, yeah, I'm good. I'm like, great. I can play more patient games now, which I never really did in the past. I always wanted like the quick thing, right? Every time I try to cut weight, for example, it's like, dude, like fuck your 300 deficit calorie days. How about you fast for 3 days? Because you gotta be tough. Right? That's how you do it. And then it's like you do it again, and then you fucking crash, and then you bench, right? And it doesn't work anymore. Like speed kills. And that was the main lesson. Like speed kills. Go slow, and eventually you will get there. I was actually thinking about this today while I was walking from you guessed it, and take a shot at home, a Jack Butcher video. So I was thinking about this. So there's like two ways to build audiences, and I really I think this one rings very true to me. So for example, let's say you have a piece of paper, right? And then you draw a point at the top and you have a pen at the bottom. It's like there's two ways to build audiences. You can just go like uh build an audience first and then launch a product. But then it's kind of risky. But what if your audience doesn't want the product you build? Because people do buy valuable stuff, but you want to make sure that they like it is the thing for them. Valuable doesn't mean like valuable itself doesn't mean it's valuable for different kinds of people. Like vegan food does nothing for me because I'm not vegan, right? But so you kind of play the gambling game here. So the way I look at it is like if there's a dot at the end of the paper, and then you have your pencil at the bottom of the paper, you only have one shot when you have a big audience and you launch an offer, and it's like you gotta go fast, like at this, and chances are you're gonna miss that dot. Whereas to me, there's another way to build an audience. You have the dot, and then you're in the bottom, and then it's going through feedback loops, going through posting proof of work, sharing what you've done, and that doesn't look like a big line. That doesn't look like a big shot. It looks like small little things, and eventually what you do is you get to a point that's so close with so much feedback, because some lines are going to go like this, some lines are going to go like this, but because they're small, eventually you can't miss because you got there with feedback. People told you what's valuable for them. Like, what podcast episode is this? 380 something?
353.
Yeah, 353. So, like, bro, you know what to ask. You know what to do, right?
If I'm not ready now, I'll never be.
Yeah, right. And it's like you already know, like, oh, this is kind of how a good podcast episode feels like. This is what I should do. This is how you start. And then inherently, yeah, you get a bigger audience, but your podcast episodes are so much more valuable today than they were before because you built it with feedback. You just didn't drop 400 at a time. And that's what people do. They build a big audience and then they just like launch the 353 episodes at a time. So no, you go one at a time, and then it's like eventually get feedback from what the product that is should build. So I feel like audience building isn't, and I took a huge detour here, but
it's okay.
Yeah, but I feel like a lot of people, like, to me, it doesn't make sense when people go, I'm just trying to build distribution and then I'll launch a product. To me, it doesn't make sense because to me, it's like you're gambling. To me, it's like, yeah, I'm just recording all my podcast episodes and I'll drop all 300 of them next year. Makes no fucking sense.
Yeah, that's how a lot of people write books as well. But it's like you could write books with each tweet, and each tweet could be a chapter. Each tweet could be a sentence, and you could have a much better idea of what sentences are going to actually work in the book. But that's why we've been given tools that previous generations never had. It's like Tucker Max wrote books, but he didn't have a way. He actually did. So what he did was, this is back in the day, he wrote emails to his friends, and his friends would email him or email and forward the emails that he sent to them. And he's like, oh, I guess I have something because they're sharing my email. So those emails became the book. It's fascinating how, like, that was back in 2005, 6, 7, 8. And he was doing his own version of Twitter before Twitter even existed.
Yeah. And now it's even faster. It's because It's not an email. It's a 280 character, which, by the way, could be a 50 character tweet. Like, it takes seconds to do it. So the way I see it, it's like YouTube, for example, or like writing books. Like writing books is it's like this old gun that you have to reload a lot, and if you miss, you're fucked, right? Yeah. But with Twitter, it's like this submachine gun. You could just go, and then you can see which ones actually worked, and you're like, oh, just do more of that, and eventually you'll get to a point where what you have is valuable and everybody buys it, right? But people wanna get it right on the first try because they're afraid of maybe missing a shot, but you're already fucking up by not doing the thing.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk to you about the long-term planning of what you're doing, because I think it's such an important aspect that for me personally, I need to do a lot of short-term things in order to realize, like, oh, this isn't getting me to my desired destination. I need to do something that I would do if no one knew I was doing and that I could do for 10 years. And that's how I stumbled across the podcast, was because I was like, I could do this for 10 years. And I would also do this if no one was listening or no one was watching. And so that's my question to you is, are you doing something that you would be doing if no one knew you were doing it?
Yeah, this time I am. No, now I am, I would say, because I really like it. And it kind of like, it doesn't come from the healthiest place, but let's walk through it. So something I love, man, and I really love this, like when a tweet gets like great engagement and people tell me like, Jakey, that was a great tweet. I'm like, oh fuck yeah. Like,
Someone's clipping that right now.
I'm sorry, guys. I just really, really like that validation. Sorry, but anyway, that's how it goes. But
Self-awareness.
yeah, there you go. And it's because like to me, it's I wanted people to see that and yeah, of course it's valuable. It's close. Of course it's helping them out. But to me, it's like, man, I like that because when I was growing up, like in high school, like everybody hated me in high school. A lot of people. I have like a group of friends, like 4 or 5 people that I hang out with. Everybody just I don't talk to. But it was like if you wanted to describe me, use a word to describe me in high school, it would not be influential or cool or like worth listening to, right? But I like I always wanted to be influential. I always wanted to be cool. I always wanted to be worth listening to. And I'm like, I that problem is like really cool to me to try to solve. How do you, as somebody who doesn't have like that innate gift of like attracting a lot of people, how can you still build an audience that you can, get that engagement from, you can get that influence from, and get that money from? So I don't know if I would do it if people were not watching, but I would say it. I would do it even if sometimes it gets no fucking engagement. Because sometimes I'll tweet things that I think are fascinating and it gets no engagement. I'm like, I still fucking like this, right? So I'll just still post it. But yeah, it's that. It's just like I feel like everybody's life is really interesting, but they just don't know how to say it, right? How to tell the thing. And I'm kind of making connections as I speak, but I saw I really like reading Bukowski. I don't know if you like
Charles
reading Bukowski.
Bukowski.
Yeah, yeah. And uh Bukowski doesn't exactly describe very like epic things that happen. It's just kind of mundane things. It's just he goes to a store, he sees a girl, he likes her, smokes a cigarette, go to sleep. Right, that's it. But like the way he describes it, it's like so cool. Like everything he talks about, it's like, man, like the way that dude grabs a cigarette, that's cool, right? For some reason, you care about it, and I feel like I do that a lot. It's like I try to like find a lot of joy in like small things, and I feel like people when they see the people with $100 million exits and $1 billion in the bank, it's like your life is cool too. You just don't know how to tell it. And if you just had the right tools, you would be able to know how to tell it because, some people just don't have that innate gift. Like I didn't have that innate gift. I want to show people that, yeah, you can build that audience and you can make money from that audience without being like the coolest dude in the park because I'm not the coolest dude in the park.
Do you think you are seeking validation from Twitter and an online audience to the extent that you were unpopular in high school?
Mm. What do you mean?
I mean that you described yourself in high school as like no one liked me, no one cared about what I had to say.
I'll push back a little bit
Please,
on that.
please do.
It's like a few people, right? But I just wasn't the most likable person. I'll say that much.
You weren't the most likable. Okay, so do you think that you are trying to gain audience for the reason of I was not likable in high school, so therefore I'm trying to find a way to be understood by some people, and that those people happen to be online citizens?
I guess that's part of it, but like it's like a fraction of the real reason, which is just I just find that problem really interesting to solve. I just really like to see how that thing works. But some of the fuel does come from that insecurity. It's not like the main thing. Like I don't have a story like, oh yeah, this guy's bullied me and I hated them, and I don't have the Mike Tyson story. Well, they have a pigeon and they like kill the pigeon and then you become the best, the youngest heavyweight champion of all time. I don't have that, right? But it's like if I had a bag of whys I do might think that would be one why. It wouldn't be the entire thing.
So what are the other whys that make you you?
Yeah, there's a few. Insecurity, it's a big one, but two is just that there there's a question that fucking kills me. You ever watch Better Call Saul or Breaking Bad?
No.
That's how you know this guy's focused because he's not watching the mainstream thing. Fuck. Okay, I love Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad. So anyway, there's this guy Gustavo Fring that he owns Los Pollos Hermanos, which is a chicken chain of restaurants, and then there's this employee Lyle who's cleaning the thing, and then he never cleans the thing right, and Gustavo always comes in and it's like, is that acceptable to you? And then Lyle's like, no, it's not acceptable to me, and goes and fix it. And I don't think I've ever like done something. I'm like, yeah, that's like acceptable to me. It just fucking drives me nuts because I'm like you said, you read you watched your podcast again, and you're like, man, this guy didn't know what he was doing, right? And I write something, I'm like, man, this tweet was just fucking whack. And I try to fix it, and I'm like, I read something like, this could have been shorter. I draw something, this could be better, right?
Yeah.
And it's just the like never ending, like I just want it to be perfect, right? And I know it doesn't exist, but I like put it in the back of my mind because I'm like, I know it doesn't exist, but I want to get close to it. Is it like the closer I get, the more, the more recognition I get, the more money I make, the more proud of my work I am, even though I'm not like completely proud ever. But at least it makes me feel good. It's I guess it's an infinite game. You get close to infinity, but you never really touch infinity,
Mm.
like the equation. But kind of feels like that.
It's like everything we do is in an attempt to be seen or understood. And that's what we're really doing here on this floating rock in space. Everything someone wears, everything someone says, the inflection that they use, how they work out, if they don't, what it's all about ways to communicate what's deep inside to the outer world. And I feel most at peace when I feel understood by someone. And that's probably why I've been trying to get better at taking the words and feelings that I have and bring them into reality, because that is being understood. If you can better convey your experience, you can be a more understood human, which is what I think we're all trying to do here.
So for you, it's like I feel like you do an outstanding job and make understanding people, bro. I've seen the reactions people get to your podcast. It's like you ask some deep ass questions and people go like, "Oh man, like yeah, like this is my thing," right? And they'll talk about their thing. But like, how do you? I feel like I was gonna ask you this actually, but like, in which situations do you feel understood, knowing that your job is understanding other people? When do you get that?
When someone feels understood, I feel like they are understanding me. So when I'm breaking down someone psychologically or going deep into their past, and they're like, "Oh my god, do you know that about me?" Or "Oh my god, how do you what's going on? What's going?" When I get that reaction, I feel as if they get me. Do you understand what I'm saying?
No.
So I guess a comparison could be when a comedian tells a joke and they get a laugh from the audience. The laugh from the audience is indicative of the audience understanding them. Because the audience, in order to laugh, you have to understand what the person is saying. For me, the equivalent of the audience is the guest. When the guest says, "Huh, I never thought about that," or "Huh, that's an interesting thing that you bring up," or "That's how do you know that about me?" For me, that's the equivalent of the audience laughing. And I get high off that, of giving people new perspectives. So I feel more understood because they are understanding themselves more.
Can you tell a story on how on any of those situations?
Yeah, I mean,
Because to me, it's like so weird because I haven't heard that ever. Sorry.
no, it's good. I'm happy to explain it deeper. I mean, it's like I ask I ask Shifty, episode 347. I ask him about Not a Fox 246 being his first YouTube screen name. And he's like, "What the hell? No one's called me Not a Fox 246 in 10 years." And his excitement about that, or his like mind-blowing reaction to it, is to me like he's understanding me, because he's understanding how I approach life. He's understanding me in that moment because he's like, "Oh, this person cares about me." And so what I aim to do with these conversations is to hold somebody in a space where it's like, "Dude, I get you. I understand you," or I'm trying to. And that to me is feeling understood, when that person feels my love for them.
Mm, I like that. I've never heard it, but I like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's a certainly helpful thing to do as a podcaster. But back to you.
Yeah.
So
This is like the second or third time that he's done this to me, by the way. Like, I'll ask him something about him. It's like respond, but it's like, yeah, but this episode's about you. Like, let's remember that. I'm like, cool, let's go.
So when you think about internal peace, and we talked about internal peace before, and you said 3.5 years ago when you sold that $1,400 or $1,500.
Yeah, I hope it's 14.
Yeah, we'll make it 1,400 just
Yeah.
for the story. What do you think it would take for you to get to that place again now?
It'll be not wanting anything, but I don't know if I want that. I kind of like that, the little like hit in the morning. It's like, you gotta do things. How you gotta wake up? You gotta start doing things.
Peace does not mean not having ambition. And I think that is something I'm trying to fight against with this podcast. It's like you can have peace and also have big ambitions for where you want to go. Those are not contradictory things. A lot of people think that if they start meditating, they'll stop wanting to do business or stop wanting to work out. From my experience, it's just made me more in touch with the desires that are actually true. I think it's a false dichotomy.
I like that. And maybe we can explore another thing that I like. A lot of the things the reason why I'm like stumbling a lot and talking about all these things is because a lot of the business thing I understand because I've written them down and I can make connections on them. I never talk about this shit or like spirituality and like peace and calm. I never talk about this, so I haven't made the connections. But I think about them sometimes more than business. I do think about this a lot, but I've and this is one of the reasons why sometimes like really like top level entrepreneurs, I just feel like I just call bullshit on a lot of these people. It's because they talk about like change and positivity and just having this meaning, and like my sense of meaning came from not wanting to be a loser, right? My sense of meaning came from just wanting to do things. So when people go with, yeah, like my purpose in this world is X, I'm like, no, like some part of me is like trying to fight that and be like, bro, like you just want to make money, you're just afraid to say it. Because I feel like I'm projecting that, because I feel like I have that in me. So I guess what would require for me to get to that point in which I'm back at where I was at the $1,400 sale was to kind of, it's somewhere there. It's me accepting that it's not an or thing, it's an and thing. Like having, you don't, it's not having a purpose in being a hippie or making money, right? It's an and, you can do both, and you don't need to be a hippie, but you know what I mean. But it's somewhere there, but I haven't really got myself to like really explore it because maybe I don't want to. Maybe I'm scared of what I might find, because like right now I'm like, yeah, it's fuel. Like what I have is fuel and it works because I do show up every day. But maybe I just don't want to. I'm afraid I'll leave it if I'm like, or maybe I'm afraid I don't have a purpose and I'm just really really selfish, right? I just want to make money. Maybe that's the thing, right? I don't know, but it's somewhere there.
But sitting with yourself, why are you uncomfortable with meditation or sitting with yourself?
Um, I don't know. Sometimes I wouldn't say I'm uncomfortable. Well, it's because I don't understand what's going on. That's the thing. Before the podcast, we were talking about how Danny sits out for an hour every morning to meditate, and I'm like, he's like, yeah, it's easy, bro. Like you could do it. I'm like, okay, well, I tried it once. I got to like the mid of 35, and I was sweating. I put it. I was fucking sweating and shaking. I was like so uneasy inside, and maybe I just don't want to go back. But to me, it's like, there's this, I think it's Tony Robbins, you change when the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of changing, something like that. And to me it's like I don't see why, because I'm helping my family out, so that's important to me. I'm making my money, I'm doing what I want to do, so I'm like, why change it? Like to me it's like, yeah, there's this price, maybe you're not as at as calm as you could be, but it's like the pain of changing is way harder than the pain of staying the same. It's like, fuck it, let's just let's just write some tweets. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, kumbaya and shit, but yeah, like, did you get some booked calls on the calendar today? Like, how are you checking the Slack notifications? Your clients need you, bro. Like, I don't know. I'm just like, there's no reason for me to do it, and that's a big one. And the second one, now that I think about it, it's one of the main drivers now. It's like I work harder now that I you hire a team so you can work less. I work harder now that I hired a team. And the reason why, it's because I'm so fucking afraid of waking up in the morning and failing for them. Like, I know I have this out of the business and this is like my job. And if I don't deliver for them, to me it's like so stressful. So I just wake up and do it. And I feel like if I take a break from that, I'll disappoint them. And they trust me, and they don't completely rely on me, but a section of their life does rely on me, and I don't want to fail them. Like, I okay, this is a good example. So I have a bad knee, right? I have a bad meniscus, and I have no trouble going, performing strength, but I have some trouble like going downstairs or like steep trails. So I love to go mountain climbing or volcano hiking in Guatemala. I love to go up the thing, which is, the hard part. Fucking despise going down the volcano. I hate it. Not because of the pain, but the pain's manageable. The pain's fine, but it's just like I'm always the last. I'm slowing the group down. And to me, just being like a dead load for people was just like unacceptable. Like, that was the one thing I didn't want to be. I didn't want to be useless, which is why I get very impatient. I tend to get very impatient with people I don't consider competent or that won't help themselves. So I'm like, bro, how are you okay with this? How are you okay with being a dead load? This is like the worst thing you could be. Like, that is the one thing I discriminate against. Is like, if you're incompetent, I don't like you. I'm sorry, but because I just fight so hard against it. But I think that in order to, like, what was the question again, Danny? Sorry.
No, you're good. What would take for you to get to peace?
Yeah, but you asked another one after that, didn't you?
It's possible. I
Yeah,
just got so wrapped up in the story that I was.
yeah, but anyway, for me to get to peace, maybe like to like let go, because I maybe make it up in my head. I make scenarios in my head all the time, but it's like maybe to let go that maybe I'm not failing them, and by going back a little bit and like taking one step back in terms of the business in order to get the spirituality thing right in my head right would enable me to take two steps forward. Maybe having that belief and understanding that if I could relate that to that is gonna make you more competent,
Mhm.
that'll do it.
Yeah.
Like that is the thing. My my grandma, like, she she also had a knee problem, right? It fucking runs in the family at this point.
Yeah.
But anyway, my grandma, she had the knee thing. And in order to get knee surgery, she needed to make some really heavy changes to her diet. But it's like, if you have ever tried to change your grandma's diet, that shit ain't easy. Like, it's hard. But it's like we never could get her to change the thing until one day the nutritionist like got her at the clinic and she said, "Do you love your family?" And that's like the one thing with my grandma. She's like, she loves her family above everything. And she's like, "Yeah, well, why are you gonna leave them early? Why are you gonna die early by not changing your diet?" Immediate change,
Wow.
like macro changing, calorie tracking, everything, just doing it right. And she got her nurse surgery, got it right. And then we went to Europe. We could talk about that. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
But she did that. But it only came after, again, the pain of changing was smaller than the pain of staying the same, because that she made that connection in her mind. But I feel like I haven't made that connection yet. Maybe because I don't want to, maybe because I'm afraid of it, maybe because I don't need it at this season.
Yeah.
It might be, but I just long a short answer is I don't see why.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And the thing is that when you I worry that a lot of entrepreneurs are climbing the wrong mountain because they're not facing the internal one.
Mm.
And if they were to face the internal one, they'd be climbing a different mountain. So every moment that they are in the game that they're playing, they're actually just creating more and more time and making it a higher and higher climb for them to go down. And you might be climbing the right mountain for you. You just might be showing up for it better if you looked and explored the inner world. Or you might be climbing the wrong mountain to begin with, but you'll save yourself years and years of time in climbing the wrong one. And I don't know that to be true for all entrepreneurs, but I just know the tendency of, I got to start something else. I got to do something else immediately. I got to focus. But it's like, are you focusing on the right thing?
Is that why your image in Apple Podcasts is a mountain?
That's exactly why.
Oh, there you
Right? It's because it's like we're all climbing mountains of all sorts all the time. But it's like, are you choosing the mountain that you're climbing correctly?
go. I like that.
Yeah, man. And it's true. And it's like, I aim to learn as much as possible about myself at a young enough age where I don't want to wake up at 47 and be like, my priority is wrong. I was valuing the wrong thing. I was valuing the wrong business. I was valuing the wrong relationship. I was valuing the wrong thing to do with my time. And so if you're young, it's like the benefit of youth is you can make mistakes and you don't have to pay as much of a price for it because it doesn't take as long to undo the changes. It's a lot easier to break up with a girl who you're in a relationship with than it is to break up with a wife because now there's more complications.
Yeah.
And so it is why I implore people to look inward, because it is the only thing that will help direct you to the place where you actually know what to do.
Where does one start with that?
It starts with sitting with yourself for 20 minutes in the morning every day and not missing a day, and being consistent and treating it like a routine and treating it like going to the gym and saying to yourself, I am not going to judge the results of this until 90 days. So I'm going to sit with my thoughts for 90 days, 20 minutes in the morning. And then if it doesn't work after 90 days, you say, okay, I'm going to try a different modality of this. Maybe it is talk therapy. Maybe it's breath work. Maybe it is yoga. Maybe it's going on walks with no inputs. But maybe it's journaling. But the most important thing you will ever do, from my personal perspective, is look inward. And if you haven't meditated for 20 minutes a day for 90 days straight, start there and go there and see what happens.
I like that I like to like highlight one thing you said, which is you do not judge the results of this until you've done it for 90 days.
Yes.
I love that. When I was first starting jujitsu, this is why I'm repping the merch today, because I started learning jujitsu here in Austin. But I told Lobo, who's a friend from Twitter, it's like, hey man, like I tried jujitsu, but I quit it because I didn't really like it. It's like, oh well, how long you trying for? I'm like, I went to a few classes. It's like, dude, shut up. Do it for 6 months. That's trying. That's the minimum thing you should try. Like, try it. So, and like I heard it there, right? And then I told that to people when it comes to outreach and outbound. It's like, do the outreach and you do not judge the results of this until you send thousands of these things. And then it's like, okay, cool. So it has a conditional, it has an if statement after that. Like, you have to do this. And then it's cool to see the same pattern here. It's like you do it, but it's like you're not talking 2 to 3 days, right? It's like 3 months. Like, try it. That is the minimum requirement of trying it. It has a minimum effective dose. It's called 90 days, right? Or whatever. But it's just cool to see that pattern again in this.
Yeah, man. And I think that it is the thing about looking at yourself is a couple of things. One, society is not going to tell you to do it because it is making money off you not doing it. Two, it is way deeper than any of the things that society preaches. It's like, working out is great. I love working out. Defending yourself is great. Jiu-jitsu is great. But those are surface level to many extremes. It's like building a business, great. But that's all in a deep sense, like how other people view you. Looking at yourself is deeper than all that. And it's how you view yourself. And it's the most important game that we'll play. But yeah, man, I think that a lot of people will try to, and maybe you do need to build up the money to do it, or maybe you do need to build up the body to do it, or maybe like I went through all that journey myself. But by far, give a kid advice who's 10 years younger than me. It's like, look at yourself. For you, what advice would you give to a 17-year-old kid or yourself 3 years ago?
Yeah, I it was one advice that when I received it, it just clicked so hard. And Dan Code doesn't like that advice because Dan Code thinks a little bit closer to the opposite of this. But I'm like, I'm huge on get rich first, learn Buddhism second. Like make the money, and then it's gonna be easy to be spiritual. It's like, like it's easy to be spiritual when you have the money, when you can buy whatever you want, when you can train at a good gym, and you can do all these things. But going back, maybe I'd say that you don't like the magical number in your bank account at which you're allowed to be spiritual doesn't exist. Like it's not a point at which you arrive. And I tend to do that a lot now that I think about it. It's like I use, for example, let's say you wanted to paint like levels of life, however you want to paint them, 1 to 1,000, right?
It's
So
funny
like,
because our last podcast is called Levels to the Game.
oh, nice. Okay,
Yeah,
there you
it's
go.
funny.
So it's like you're at level 7. So what I try to do is that at some point there's something different, there's something cool about leveling up, is that a certain skill set takes you to not the next level, but a certain set of levels. And then the same skill set will cap at one point, and it won't allow you to not only reach the next level, but the next set of levels. So let's make an example. So from 0 to 6 figures, I got to 6 figures by doing more, by being a go-getter, just doing more shit, sending more DMs. I got to 7 figures, and more didn't take me there. I got to 7 figures by actually doing less. It was by reinventing how it did things. And I feel like if now that I want to get to 8, I gotta change something about it, because the same things that take you from 0 to 6 won't take you to 6 to 7, won't take you to 7 to 8. So yeah, what was the question again? Sorry.
Advice to yourself 3 years ago.
Yeah. So going back to that, like I'd say that I'd be wary to really nail that. It's like what got you here won't take you to the next one, because I tend to just go really hard headed and try to repeat the same thing, repeat the same habit, and never change the thing. And I would like, if I could give myself some advice, it'd be like looking back, it'd be like, this is the level at which the things change, at which you need to do something different. Like when you're cutting, I think I read this somewhere, but it's like you cut the same way to a certain level of body fat, but then you have to do something different to reach like something that's really below that, like really, really, really lean. Like some people get like do a cheat day and then they cut the next day for some reason, because their body like understands, oh yeah, there's food in the stomach, you can let go. I don't know if it's bullshit, but it illustrates the point, you know what I mean? Like from the way Danny's looking at me, he knows more about fitness than me. It's probably bullshit, but anyway, you get the point. Like at some point you need to change the strategy, and I feel like I would go back and tell myself at this point, you change the strategy. You can't keep doing the same thing.
So going based on that, what was that for business? When do you need to change the strategy, and what was the actual thing that happened?
Yeah, we're talking business.
Yeah.
So I think it's, if I could like really oversimplify it, and take this with a grain of salt, but if I could oversimplify it, I said 0 to 6 figure, you get there with a what, like what you do more and more and more. 6 to 7 figure, I think you get there with how you do it, like how you implement things, how you implement leverage. But I feel like 7 to 8, I'm not at 8, but the answer seems to be who you hire to do the thing. You know, so I feel like those are the things. 0 to 6 is what, 6 to 7 is how, but 7 to 8 is actually who.
What's the example of how? And for in your own life, to give context for.
Yeah. So, for example, let me think about this. You want to book calls, right? You and there's like, we book calls 2 ways now for the program. One is, in the beginning I did cold DM outreach, right? Just trying to get people in. But now we're finding out that actually doing mass webinars with a call to action in the end where you can book calls, it's way higher leverage. So we're doing the same thing, but before it was what? It was just doing more, but now it's how? It's like doing the webinar that has more leverage.
Mm.
Right? But in the beginning, like that is good advice now that we're like, you got us to 7. But I wouldn't tell that to myself from the beginning because I just didn't have the audience to be able to pull a webinar. Like I get all hyped up, be like, yo, welcome to the webinar. 2 people. So it's like it wouldn't work.
I
Right.
see.
But that's an example of how. And now who? It's like I was just talking to Ryan, like right on the way, which by the way, I was late to the podcast because I didn't know where the address was, but we got it sorted now. It's like, hey, where are you? I'm like, not where you sent me. Sorry.
It's all good. It's all good.
but yeah, so I was just talking to Ryan, and I'm always going to Ryan like, yo, this marketing strategy and like this way, and it's like, no, bro, we need some other coach. We need a customer success manager. We need to get into somebody's program. It's a who kind of thing. And like right, like where are you getting all these ideas? And one coach from him told like Ryan told him about how I operated and how sometimes he operated. He said, you know what your problem is? And Ryan goes, what? He's like, you guys sometimes try to build an 8-figure business with 5-figure habits.
Oof. Just called your ass out.
Oh, like I need an ambulance now. Fuck. Like, that hit harder than when my dad says, like, I thought you were famous and nobody recognized you. But I'm like, you're right. And it's like I think that there's like 3, again, from Alex, work out, take a shot. It's like 3 things that hold the entrepreneur back. It's like skills, traits, and beliefs. Skills, traits, and beliefs.
Skills, traits, and beliefs are the 3 things that hold entrepreneurs back.
Yeah, that's right. So in the beginning, I thought it was, I thought I could be a billionaire in 3 years, right? I was like, yeah, well, it's a good belief to have, but it's like you don't have the skill, bro. You're a VA, right? Like, let's just be honest here. That, and then traits, which was I used to like jump from business model to business model, and it prevented me from building Tweet100 to what it could have been. So that was a trait thing. That was me being impatient. But now it's just like belief. That's all that kind of held me back from reaching the next stage, which was you're gonna get there by doing the same thing you're doing. You're not. You need somebody else. You need a team at this point. So that's kind of I think I would have really nailed the skills, traits, and belief thing to me, and tell me this is where you change each.
What are the other beliefs that are holding you back?
Oh shit. Okay. Is that this is a big one that I need to beat people. Like I need to win, right? I need to, because that business is a finite game. Like now it's like I know it's not like deep within, but still I act like it is often. It's like, yeah, I want to get more engagement than this motherfucker. Like my content is better. Fuck this guy. Like, dude, I'm better than him, right? No, dude, come on, chill, right? But it's like I keep doing that because I think that I try to beat him, which is why when you talk about purpose and just having this vision, that is a what's the opposite of zero sum game? Positive sum games, right? That is like everybody can win.
Win
right?
and help win.
Yeah, and to me, like I just didn't believe that in the beginning. I wanted it to not be true, so I can be the guy at the top. And it's a belief that I'm like. And by the way, this is not a binary thing. Like you kind of like it's a continuum, but it's like one I'm shifting. So I think that's the one that I need to win. You're already winning, right? It's just to what extent are you winning? That's one, and 2 is a thought process that I always correct in people because I see it in myself. Like you're really good at catching your own flaws in others, right? But in yourself, it's like no, like I don't have it, bro. It's just a fluke, right? But to me, it's like I tend to treat things a lot like light switches because there's like 2 types of light switches. I feel like I treat them a lot as the on and off light switch, right? It's just on or off, yes or no, 0 or 1. Whereas life works like like this gradual light switch. You kind of change it, right? And I feel like I approach situations too much on the it's yes or no, 0 or 1, this or that. Where it's just like, no, like it's a shade of color that you need to find the nuance in, which sometimes is hard because as a marketer, introducing nuance in your marketing hurts it.
Right.
And
Black and white helps the marketing grow
Yeah.
and spread and engagement.
yeah, it's not called A versus B versus C versus D. It's called us versus them. That's what it's called. It's not called like the billions levels of market sophistication. No, it's 5 levels of market sophistication, right? It's not like this is a relatively good niche. Yeah, good luck with that headline, bro. Like it has to be, this is the best niche ever and you're missing out today if you don't do it, right? So I tweeted this today, like something similar. Like absolutes are an enemy for the entrepreneur, but they're an ally for the marketer, right? Like when you use absolutes and like in your thumbnails, right? You gotta be like the best method, the best thing, right? But like if you think like that as an entrepreneur, it hurts you because you don't see the nuance, and the money is made in the nuance.
So what are you gonna do to help those beliefs become more in line with what you want to actually believe?
Well, now I'm gonna meditate. Now that I think about it, I'm like, I'm big on not doing many things like at the same time, like not implementing big changes. I'm very careful of like taking a lot of advice and just changing a lot. I'm big on doing the small things, right? So definitely that, and it comes from a lot of these stories come from high school. I think a lot like the reason why I tell a lot of stories is because I actually think on them, and because I like they're very useful to explain concepts, I feel. But when I was in high school, like our math teacher asked us to do a toothpick bridge, right? And toothpick bridge, it's very simple because triangles are like the strongest shape. That's why when you see a bridge, you see like it's just a lot of triangles, right? But it's because it's a strong shape. And the teacher, what he wanted us to do, sorry.
You good? You good, bro?
Yeah, man. So what he wanted us to do was explain that topic, as in you just need to do many triangles with toothpicks, and eventually you have a bridge. So I did one, and then did another one, and I did another one, and then I got impatient because I'm like, this is so fucking boring. It's just triangles. Let me try to do a square. Let me try to do a rhombus. Let me try to spell my fucking name on my bridge, right? Because somehow it's gonna take the weight. And then in presentation day, everybody says basic ass bridges really worked out well. They, like my teacher stood on them, right, and they took the strength. And then he put a like a a pencil case on top of mine. It just fucking crumbled because it was horrible, right? And it reminded me a lot of it's just sticking to the fundamentals. So I'm like, what is the one thing that I can do over and over again that would be unreasonable for it to produce a result? And when you see that theme, it carries a lot into other areas like jiu-jitsu. The biggest family in jiu-jitsu are the Gracie family, and their family symbol, it's a triangle. Wow. Because it's the strongest shape, and it's like fundamentals. It's doing the thing. It's doing the same toothpick bridges over and over again. It's triangles, triangles, triangles. For the longest time, my wallpaper was a triangle. Because I wanted to remember that. I wanted to do the same thing. Just consistency. Like my lead magnet. My lead magnet is not a Twitter monetization course now. It will be. But before it was a checklist, because I wanted to be, and I really made this toothpick bridge analogy and the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu analogy in the beginning, as in it's just doing the same thing. It's not about like just doing it, but it also has an if statement at the end. This will work if you don't look at your results for 90 days, for 180 days, for 365 days. So what am I going to do is I'm going to implement one thing from this podcast. Because if I try to implement all the game you gave me here, like it's going to take me too long. I know it's fucking valuable, but I'm not at that level yet. And I need to go slower, which is fine. Right. So I'm just gonna do the small thing, which is I'm probably going to meditate. I don't know if I'm going to be able to take 20 minutes without going crazy, but at least I'll sit down and try it.
You will by the 90th day.
Yeah.
You will, if you commit to it, you will be able to do it by the 20th day. I was actually thinking about this today because I'm running a lot now, and I'm like, wow, running isn't so bad, just the first 2 weeks suck. And then I'm like, wait, that's true for every habit. It's like the habit isn't so bad, it just the first 2 weeks of getting acclimated to that sucks. So So be prepared to suck for 14 days, and then on the 15th day, be prepared for it to suck a little less.
Yeah, that's right. And it's funny how we like forget about these habits. Like to me,
Yes.
it's like I wake up at 5 and I sit in my computer and write tweets for like hours, right? I love it. But like if you had told me that 4 years ago, it's like, dude, how do you do it? It's like you just do it.
Yeah.
Right? Just kind of do it. But nah, it's
Because
just helpful.
when you've advanced beyond a certain threshold of years, you're like, oh, this is easy. This is simple. This is just part of my being at this point.
Right.
But when you're in the first 2 weeks of it, which some people are who are listening to this in terms of tweets, in terms of business, in terms of starting a new habit of some sort, it sucks. But like, it's okay. Let that suck fuel you because you know if you keep doing it, it'll turn out okay.
Yeah. And it actually like when I think about why do things, and this is just a question I always struggle with. When people ask me like, "What's your why, JK?" I'm like, I don't fucking know. I'm sorry, but I always, I'm really not qualified to answer that. But the one thing I will say on that, it's like, why should you start all these habits? Why should you do X, Y, and Z? I never had a why. I always had a why not. Like, why not meditate? What's the alternative? You're gonna be like shaky all the time and just uncomfortable, or do it. Like, why do you start this business? Why not? Like, are you gonna be broke? Like, no. Like, why work out? Why not? Do you not want to look great? So when I had the why not, it not only allowed me to find the motivation, but it also made it look like so fucking obvious. Like, yeah, right. Why not? Why not do these things? So maybe if you're listening to this and it's like, you see Danny so calm and you see me like looking at the floor and thinking about what I'm gonna say, it's like, and you're like, man, like I'm not as fucked up as this guy, but I'm not as spiritual as this guy. Maybe that's the middle thing, right? Maybe you don't need a why. Maybe you just need a why not, and you can work up to it.
I love it, man. That's such good advice. And I gave my challenge. I end these podcasts with challenges for people. Since you've come on the show, I started doing this thing where I ask the guests for a challenge. And I normally don't provide my own challenge, but for this one, it's 20 minutes of meditation for 90 days is my challenge to someone listening. But do you have a challenge for someone who's made it this far in the episode and who wants to live the best possible version of their life?
Well, I like that. I like that. It's find one thing that you wanted to do, and just instead of asking yourself, I don't have the motivation, I don't have the main thing, ask yourself why not. So like just and it this is not a challenge that's gonna take you like 20 minutes a day. It just takes you like 20 seconds now.
Mm.
Why not? And then you're probably gonna arrive to a more powerful answer than just why, which is what happened to me. And then maybe tomorrow it'll make sense and you'll start doing it. So why are you not doing what you need to do? And just start with that.
At 1JK Molina, link down below on Twitter. Anywhere else we should send people to connect with you further?
That's all good. Add 1JK Molina on Twitter. If you want to grow your audience, I'm not your guy. But if you want to monetize your audience, welcome.
JK Molina.